Hey, back with another lick of the week. The previous video was actually dealing with using the metronome, but I thought I would go ahead and finish out the D series that I had started a few weeks back. So we're going to close out the low position D Scruggs ideas in this video, and I've just shown you some very basic concepts. There's so many variations of these licks that I could show you that I wouldn't have enough video space or enough hard drive on my computer to contain them all, because there are a lot of variations on these licks. I just want to cover, again, the most basic, the most important foundational ones that you'll probably use, especially if you're new to these ideas. Now, I'd like to add a little bit to what I showed you in the previous video. We had some scrolling ideas or arpeggiated ideas based on repetitive notes in the chord shape. One of the ideas we played was an alternating thumb idea, where we kind of played a hammer on the 4th string and then a pull off on the 3rd string. What I want to do is just take that lick just a little further, like you hear in Scruggs style, and instead of hammering from open 4 to that F sharp note, instead of playing it that way, what I want to do is kind of modify the hammer so that we're hammering from the 2nd fret of the 4th string to that F sharp note. So we're hammering actually from an E to an F sharp. And in order to do that, if you'll notice in the video, I'm picking my index finger up and putting it over on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. So before we were just hammering from open 4, but now we're going to hammer from 2 to 4, which makes it a little harder to do, but if you reach that index finger over, it's one of these touchy-feely things that you do a lot out of this number 2 chord position. Now I'm going to fire the metronome up again at about 100 beats a minute. So it's just a small variation on the previous lick, but again, it's something you hear a lot in basic Scruggs ideas out of this position. So just focus on moving your index finger over to the 2nd fret of the 4th string. I'm trying to get a good camera angle here. And then the lick will kind of roll out just like your other lick, just a little bit harder. Now another position is what's referred to as the Cumberland Gap position, Sally Gooden position, and that is a modification of any number 2 chord shape. I always refer to the 3 chord shapes as 1, 2, and 3 as far as the shape. I don't like calling these the D, F, and the, especially the D and the F shape, because all 3 of the shapes that you learn for major chords are movable. You just change the name as you move it around. So I prefer to call it 1, 2, and 3. So I refer to the D shape as the number 2 formation. There is a modification of this shape that you can do anywhere on the neck, and it's immediately recognizable by people who have any experience with this kind of style, where you just hold the 1st and 2nd string out of that formation. Normally you would hold the middle, the middle finger on the 2nd string and the pinky at the 1st string. Now we're talking about D major here because we're discussing D licks, but if you move this anywhere on the neck, it's movable. These same fingers occupy the same strings always. So what we're going to do is modify it. Instead of using these 2 fingers to hold the 1st and 2nd string, we're going to use the index and the ring. So you see what I'm holding. And the reason we'll do this is Earl already found out years ago that if you want to be able to add notes to this chord shape, yeah, you can move fingers around, but you can also reach for higher notes that are higher up, by changing or modifying the way you hold the shape. So when you do this, you're kind of locked in place, and there's only so many notes you can reach without changing the whole formation. But by modifying the formation into this, you get the classic ideas that you hear in Sally Gooden, Cumberland Gap, Down the Road, all these classic high breaks, Foggy Mountain Breakdown up the neck. All these licks and ideas for tunes relate to this modified number 2 chord shape. So what I want to do is just play around with a couple ideas based on this Sally Gooden position. Now what you have to watch out for with a D chord in G tuning is that you have an F sharp note followed by a G note, and those two notes are a half step apart. And remember, any two intervals that are a half step apart, if they're played at the same time, produces nasty sounds called dissonance. So to get away from that, you can roll, and sometimes that dissonance is not too offensive if it's just a passing note and it's not, you don't harp on that note a lot. But if you were to do that in the context of this Sally Gooden position in D, you get some pretty nasty sounding things. So what I'm going to do is just not play the 5th string. We're going to square these ideas off, and I'm going to reach up. Now the tough thing too about using the Sally Gooden position down low is that as you progress up the neck with this position, again, always basing it on a number 2 position, or number 2 shape I should say, anytime you move it around, the fret distances get closer, which means your pinky and your other finger that you're reaching around with doesn't have to, those fingers don't have to reach as far. Down here in the low positions, it's a pretty good stretch, so if you're not used to doing this, you know, this will be something you probably need to work on. So what I'm going to do is do a 2, 1, 2, and then eventually I'm going to add this B note on the 3rd string with my middle finger, a la, you know, Sally Gooden and a lot of songs come together. And then I can pinch 1 and 2. So other than just giving you half a dozen examples of what I'm doing with this, we're just going to kind of condense it into a few simple ideas. I'm going to have you do a 2, 1, 2, 3, and maybe double the 2nd string, and then pinch. Now again, the tough thing about this position is getting from this, doing all these reaches, getting back into formation. That's why players probably don't really care for playing a lot of licks out of this position for too long a time, because it is taxing for your left hand if you're not used to it. So let me fire the metronome up again at 100. Now again, remember you have the open 4th string that you can always resolve ideas to. So as you play this idea, you can play that 4th string, which will bring the listener's ear to the lick. So that's going to conclude most of the D ideas. There are some really cool ideas for the D7 chord, but simple D7 ideas in Scruggs style usually revolve around just some simple rolls. What I want to wait to do is tackle a few bluesy ideas in some future videos, because there's some great blues licks out of D7 that we could play. But for the remainder of this video, I'm just going to kind of string all these ideas for D together. And I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.